Hello all. In this video, I'm going to explain you how to develop a software requirements specification. Software requirements specification is an important activity in the software development. Basically, what is a software is the solution to the customer's requirements. If a developer does not satisfy the requirements properly, then software, whatever he is going to design, will be a waste. So, keeping in this mind, there is a special team of people in the software industry who are called software requirements analysts, who are seniors having a good number of experiences are going to deal with this particular requirements. If there is any small mistake in the software requirements specification, will lead to a software with a lot of bugs. Any changes in the software requirements specification will lead to revamp the entire software, because after you complete your software requirements specification, you'll be going to next stage, that is called design stage. After you complete design stage, you are moving towards coding and then testing and etc etc. That means your requirements are very important from the point of view of your entire software. Now let us see what are you going to consider in this software requirements specification. So your software requirement specification should be documented in the form of IEEE format. So as per the IEEE format, in the beginning, point number one, you are supposed to give the introduction of the entire software, whatever you are going to develop. Please consider a small paragraph is needed to introduce your software, not the software engineering. Nowhere here you are supposed to explain the general terminologies which are used in software engineering. Nowhere, please don't use it. Use the introduction or write an introduction about the software, whatever you are going to explain or whatever you are going to design. So the subcategories of introduction is you need to mention what is the purpose of the software. Why are you developing a software? Never mind if you mention the software, the purpose of the software is to fulfill the sixth semester requirements of the BCA program. And in this concern, you are going to develop a software for this particular industry. And you say the purpose of this software is to provide a automated solution for, say, agricultural industries, or automated solution for the online purchases, online sales, or automated solutions for the farmers or the pharmacists. Like this, you have to mention the purpose of it. Scope of it. So mention what is the scope of it. The scope of the project. Suppose if at all you are developing a project for the pharmacy, you mention that the scope of this particular project is limited only to the medical shop, and it doesn't cover the distributor, supplier, and other things. Only thing, the software is limited, the scope of the software is limited to sales of the medicine and purchase of the medicine, stock of the medicine inside the medical shop. You have to mention what is the scope of it. Then you may use some definitions, you may use some acronyms, you may use some abbreviations. So what are the definitions you are using, what are the acronyms you are using, what are the abbreviations you are defining, you ought to mention. See, these are all related only to your work, not to anything else. Coming to next, references. What are the references you are taken to write all those details you have to mention? Then the first part, the point number one, ends with the overview of your project. So you briefly give the overview of your project. So that is a first aspect of your project. So let me give you an example here. See, just look at here. Introduction is given. Of course, the particular formatting is not correct. So FoodMate. Introduction about the software called FoodMate is given, wherein what is a particular software is going to do and what are the requirements which you are going to consider for this particular FoodMate is mentioned. Then next is, I said, uh, FoodMate. What is the purpose of it? Say the purpose of it is to use the food delivery industry. So it's actually a software for delivery of the food. So you'll be coming to know. So the person who is reading your journal will be able to understand what is the purpose of your software, to which you are going to design or develop requirements. So what is the purpose of it? He will be able to understand. He will be able to know. Then afterwards, you mention, as I mentioned, scope. You list out the scope. The particular software is limited to the customers who are buying the food items online using internet. So uh, this particular software is limited only to the supply of the food, and no other grocery and other equipment supply is considered. So like this, what is the software? Is you have, or do you have any app, mobile app, or if it is non-mobile app, like this? You just mention where your software is getting used. So just mention the scope and you clearly mention, list out where your particular software is not used. For example, you may say the scope of the software is limited, in this case, limited to the delivery of the food. So this software may not be useful for the restaurants. Like this, you have to mention. Followed by definitions, acronyms, and abbreviations. Give the definitions, various definitions. GUI, DBMS. You yourself can create some definitions or abbreviations you can create, so that later on, after you explain that particular abbreviation here, you can use that abbreviated word anywhere. For example, admin. It's admin. What is admin? Normally, in our general terminologies, we don't know what is the meaning of admin. But admin means administrator. So later on, after defining admin as administrator, you can use that everywhere in your project about the admin or administrator. Then overview of the project. So overview of the project. So what the particular project is and how is it working. So the gist of the particular point one, the point one. So all these things just mention, gist of it you mention in one paragraph. Now moving on to the second aspect of your project, that is second part, wherein you have to give the overall description about the project. So now in the first case, you are given an introduction about the software, whatever you are going to develop. In the second phase, you are going to give the overall description about the project, what your project is going to do, how your project is going to serve, what are the project perspectives, so what are the functions of the project, so who are the users who are using, what are the characteristics of the users. Then every project has got its own constraints. Be open in mentioning the constraints of it in the name of general constraints. Then coming to assumptions and dependencies. What are the assumptions you are going to have? So what are the dependencies? Like, it's not that in some cases, some customers think that I'm giving a contract to you in developing a software. So once your software is ready, they say, okay, you come and keep the software and make the software run without giving you a computer, without giving an internet connections. So without having the prerequisites, operating system and other licensed softwares, they simply come and say that, okay, you put it because of the ignorance. So it is not so. You have to specifically mention. So in order to run your software, you require a computer hardware of this particular specification. You require a server software. So it has to be preloaded, including the database server, and internet of minimum this particular speed is required. In some cases, if he wants to view his server globally, then you require to buy a static IP address, you require to buy a domain name. So all these are the dependencies of your software. So let us look at this particular description here. So You need to give overall description, wherein you need to mention what are the product perspective of it. Okay, wherein you give gist of it. The product is doing like this. Product is delivering. There are kitchen and customers. So give the perspective of the product. Then functions. What are the various functions are there? Like menu management is one function. Order retrieval system is another function. So web ordering system is one another one. So like this, you mention one by one. See, customer registration is one function. Login is another function. And the purchase of the raw materials, purchase of the grocery items can be one function. Then identifying the reorder level can be another function. Then finance, payment related activities can be another function. So like this, you go on mentioning the description about the various functions which you are using in your software. So here you have to be very specific about the functions whatever you are using. So same way, similarly, in your coding, similar functions need to be consider. So you have to write those functions. So you are developing the functions, you are coding those functions based on the description about the functions which you are giving over here. So product functions. Okay, so one more point I forgot to mention here in the case of this thing, dependencies and dependencies. So let me take you to that assumptions and dependencies. See, one of the assumptions is payment. See, your project does not permit any third-party payment gateway softwares to work because there are certain conditions. There are some agreements to be given between the two parties. As your software is not a commercial software, suppose if you want to make it a commercial software, you can definitely think of that at a later stage. But as of now, your software is not a commercial software, so you will not be able to have a what I mean to say. What do I mean to say is you will not be having any uh, chances or any provision for the third party payment portal to interact with your software. You may say these are the constraints. So you can definitely say these are the this is as a constraint. So you mention that. Okay. Then you're giving product functions. Then what are the browsers which are supporting? Then as I told you, user characteristics. What are the different users are there? And what are the activities of the users? See, in the previous case, I mentioned product functions. See, it is mentioned here. For admin user, these are the functions which are working. Login function, manage profile, manage shop, view customers, view payments, reports, view feedback. For the kitchen, these are the functions. Login, registration, manage orders. For the delivery, these are the functions. See, here you can see the clear cut description about the various functions of the particular product. And here it's mentioned the different types of users also. Okay, users also. So here constraints are mentioned here, the assumptions and dependencies are mentioned here. So about the product functions you need to mention now. Then as I told, user characteristics, general constraints, assumptions and dependencies, which we have already discussed. Now, I am coming to a very, very, very important requirement. That is what is called specific requirements. So, under specific requirements, you have to consider the smallest part of the requirements which take a vital role in the software development. You have to include all the requirements which are required, but you should not include any single requirement which is not required. So that's a concept. You have to include all the requirements which are required, but you should not include any single requirement which is not required. So keep all these things in mind. So considering this specific requirements, what are the things you are supposed to consider in the specific requirements? Point number one, you need to consider external interface requirements. Like the particular software is connected to what are the external interfaces. It may be connected to internet. It may be connected to some hardware devices. It may be connected to some external requirements. So what are the external requirements your software is depending upon? What are the external requirements your software is connected to? That you have to list out. Then next one, who are the users who are using the software? As I already mentioned, see, these are all the users. As I mentioned, these are all the users like admin, kitchen, delivery, customers, right? So these are all the users, right? Then what are their constraints? What are their requirements? That you have to mention. Then uh, next one is hardware interfaces. What type of minimum hardware requirements you require so that your software is able to run? It could be octa-core processor, hexa-core processor, i3 processor, i5 processor with the minimum size of RAM is being 8 GB, 16 GB. Like this, you have to mention about the uh, hardware interfaces. What are the hardware interfaces which are required to run your software? At the same time, you have to mention what is the software interface which are required, right? What is the software interface? As I already mentioned, you may require operating system, you may require a Apache server, you may require a MySQL server, you may require a Python or PHP. These are all the software requirements which you are not going to provide it. If all these softwares are installed and ready, then you can transfer your software to the particular system and you can run your software in that. And along with that, communication interfaces. As I told you, communication interfaces. Your software may require an internet connection of a minimum speed. Sometimes it may require your uh, browsers, it may require static IP address also so that your server can be globally visible. So, what are the various communication standards your software requires? Mention that as a requirement. So like this, say users requirements, software requirements, hardware requirements, communication requirements. Now coming to functional requirements. So there are small change in this discussion which I will tell you. See, when it comes to functional requirements, you have to go in depth of every module. You have to list out all the modules. For example, if you are developing a software for a library management system. So when you are developing a software for the library management system, then you are supposed to split up the problem into smaller modules like purchase system, library book purchase, entry of the library books to the library, issue of the books, return of the books, damage management, then all this, finance, payment and other things from the library to the bookseller, salary component, then searching of the books. So like this, you have different modules, and you have to list out all the modules, and for every module, what are the requirements you are supposed to enter with the specific nature of that particular module. So for example, let me explain you. For example, here, admin. What are the modules for admin? Login is one module. In the login, he is supposed to give username and a password. Manage profile is a module. Where he has to manage the module, manage kitchen. So he will be managing the kitchen. Of course, one important point is missed out here also, which I will be explaining it to you. So these are all the various modules which you are supposed to mention. So, and you have the customer module. So here you have to specifically mention the requirements in depth. I will take you to one example. See, registering is one simple module. Okay, registering for a job portal is one simple module. One simple module wherein you are supposed to consider all these other specific requirements like first name. What should be the type of the first name? Varchar2. Last name. Once again, what is the type of the last name? Varchar2. email address, where care to, password, where care to, location, mobile number can be a 10-digit number, experience, key skills, industry, functions. What are the contents you are going to enter here? You have to specifically mention the type of it, because these are the things which you are going to transfer it into a table. You are creating a database table. In that database table, you are going to have all these fields. That's why I said in every module, even a single requirement should not be missed. At the same time, unnecessary requirement should be added. There should not be such single requirements or unnecessary requirements. So you should be very careful in considering all the requirements. So I'm giving a simple example of this. This is one simple module, say registration module. Let me say registration module. So these are all the things which are required in the registration module, for which you need to mention like this. Upload resume, name of the module. What are the things which you are uploading? First name of type varchar2, last name of type varchar2, email address of type varchar2, password, current location varchar2, mobile number long integer, total experience integer, key skills varchar2. See, you have everything whatever you mention over here. See, a clarity is there in this. Name of the module is upload a resume. What are the things which you are going to consider here? Being the type, requirements, and what is the type of the same. So these are all the requirements. 3.2.1.1. What is the type? 3.2.1.2. What is the type? 3.2.1.3. What is the type? 3.2.1.4. What is the type? So like this, all these are the requirements. Okay, so uh, these two are very important related to, like this you have to develop for different modules like this. See here, for example, module 1, if I consider this as a module 1, it's a specific requirement you have to, so you need not design this, but you have to mention this. So what is the module 1? You have to explain in one paragraph, then straight away write this, the requirements of the module. Like this, module 2, module 3, module 4, module 5. You may have 10, 20 modules, you may have 25 modules, you may have any number of modules, so that you have to consider all those modules together. All those modules together. So this is what is required in the SRS. This is very important in SRS. Modules, various modules. Module 1, module 2, module 3. So, but unfortunately in this journal also, the specific requirements are not mentioned, but modules are mentioned. All the modules are mentioned. So, other requirements, yes, right? So afterwards, what you need to do is you need to mention about the design constraints, performance requirements. What are the requirements for the performance, right? Then constraints. What are the constraints which are there for the design? So some constraints are the mandatory fields. What are the mandatory fields? And then without which you are not able to go ahead of it. So these are what are called design constraints. Let me, so performance requirements. So design constraints, then some attributes. So actually 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, 3.6 are not very big in nature. Like, it's mentioned here. So performance requirements. These are the requirements which are required for the performance. Like, very good internet connectivity is required. Then page load time should be less than 40 seconds. Memory space is required. High processor speed should be more. Then the server shall be capable of supporting an arbitrary number of active orders. So server's capacity, what should be the size of each file. So these are all performance requirement. Then constraints. Constraints, the person who is using your app also tech savvy. So the staff also need to know something about the software. Otherwise, they will not be able to work with this particular software. And all mandatory fields should be filled by customer while adding profile details. So these are all the constraints. So what are things to be added. So if you miss out something, will the software accept it? No, will the software will not accept it. So mandatory fields should be filled. Then people should be having a knowledge about the software. So all these things are the design constraints which you need to mention. Then performance attributes, reliability fit, user friendliness, maintainability, portability, flexibility, timelines. So these are the system attributes which you need to mention. So other requirements you can give safety requirements and uh, any other requirements which you feel like adding, you can definitely add. So this is about the system attributes. This is about the design constraints, right? Then other requirements, including safety requirements, you have to mention over here. So that completes your software requirements specification. So once we finish software requirements specification, we will be moving on to the next part of it, that is design of it. Okay. So thank you all for patiently